Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. It is 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on this 24th day of October in the year of, oh my God, 2021. Happy Sunday. Losing the Foundation, live tonight on the Awaken the World. So hopefully this works out the way it's supposed to. I don't know if it's going to or not. I've done this to the page and shared into the group, and I hope it actually goes through that way. I guess we're gonna find out. Uh, but either way, as always, let me express my love for each and every one of you. You know, you're exactly where you need to be right now, and you're actually quite perfect. There's nothing wrong with anybody. And this can be difficult to grasp, but it's really, 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 really the truth. No matter what you think is going on right now, you are perfectly set up. You are given all the circumstances, all the events, everything to be able to choose and to continue to choose and to make higher and higher choices that are more and more in alignment with the truth of who you are. Now, tonight we're going to have you know, and again, this is always a big struggle for me because there's a lot of times when I would just rather head for a cave and stay there. And if anyone thinks that I wouldn't be perfectly comfortable or perfectly fine living in a cave by myself underneath a hill, I got another thing. It absolutely would not be a problem. And I struggle with that. You know, it was the same struggle I had when I left the monastery. I didn't want to leave especially the one monastery I was in Tibet. You know, we were at roughly 14,000 feet. There were natural hot springs, mineral hot springs, and I would watch the sunset in this rarefied Himalayan air in high in the mountains and see a view of the stars that you simply don't get living down here on Earth and on the rest of Earth. You know, but at 14,000 feet, the stars, the air is so much more rarefied, and the view is just mind-boggling. And I didn't want to leave that monastery. And when the Lama, the abbot of that monastery, came to me and said, you know, you got to take this and go back now to the West and share it, and give it to them. They desperately need it. We all desperately need the West and the capitalist world to get a hold of this. And I struggle with that for weeks. And I struggle now because as much as I know that ultimately everything's going to be perfectly okay, there is a very difficult, long road of suffering ahead. And as much as I understand that's an illusion, it would be foolish to believe that we're supposed to sit there and say, well, you know, it's just the way it is. We gotta let it happen. We're always given choice. We're always given an opportunity. And that's part of it. If you're unaware, if you're not paying attention and missing out, how valid are your choices? How informed are your choices? This is very much like being unconscious and becoming conscious for the first time, you know, waking from the sleep, that your ego is the you, instead of understanding that there really is no individual you, and that you are a manifestation of something much larger, much grander, that you are a part of. We face the breaking down of the foundation of our society, and we have to understand exactly what's going on. Okay, so you know, here's the deal, and again, this is why I feel compelled to talk about it, although in perfect honesty, I would rather not. You know, it's not a fun subject for me because I feel deeply for all humanity. I truly do love each and every member of our species. Why? because I know they're all part of me. That none of this is separate from me. That I am not separate from any of it. And if I cannot love it, how could I ever love myself? If I could not love every one of the Creator's creations, how could I love the Creator? Now, I guess the first thing we need to establish before we get a little deeper into this, just so we're all clear, everything's going to be okay ultimately. But that doesn't stop us from having the ability to choose a new path at any moment. At any moment. And so far, we don't seem to get it quite yet. So, I don't want to talk about the 800 million people who are literally starving on this planet right now. I've talked about that before. What I do want to talk about is the foundation of our society. And I want to read a little bit from the good book of the Bhagavad Gita and a little bit of what Krishna had to say. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna lists the prescribed duties within a society. And he says, I have mentioned the importance of doing one's duty, old friend. Now I will explain the nature of prescribed duties. The responsibilities of people in various segments of society can be divided under 4 general headings. The seers, or the mystics and the religious leaders and the spiritual leaders. The political leadership, the government, the providers and the servers. No particular group of people is superior to any other, but like limbs of the body, each has a respective role to play. And we're going to talk about each of those briefly, and then we're going to talk about why the foundation is being eroded. So our seers are supposed to be the holy ones. And they're supposed to establish the character and spiritual underpinnings of this society. In other words, to exemplify in every way possible what it is meant to be a person of character and to have a deep spiritual connection to all things. That's the job of a seer. And I'm not going to get into how far we've gotten away from these sort of descriptions, okay? Our seers are to provide spiritual and moral leadership, and it should be natural to them. In other words, if you're looking for a job doing it and your goal is to take people for all you can get, then you're not really fulfilling that role. And in this case, I'm speaking directly to every single one of you who would ever practice the prosperity gospel and take from those in need to enrich yourselves. The primary objective of society's leaders is to help transform human beings into exemplary human beings. In other words, to lead by example. To guard the welfare and prosperity of society by serving the people. They are charged with bringing moral stamina and adherence to duty. Boy, this doesn't sound like any leader I know. I gotta tell you, but politically. Duty through courage, fearlessness, resourcefulness, and ingenuity in the face of changing condition. They must be the examples of law, justice, and generosity. They must lead by inspiring the populace through good example and yet be ready to enforce their authority. Boy, I would love to see someone like that get into office. But even the system itself is designed to keep that from happening. Now, here's the part where we're coming down the layers, and unfortunately, in our capitalist modern world, as you saw by that post earlier, we've developed this idea, and a lot of people who have far too much hold on to this idea that they are somehow better than, or have a more important existence than someone who they would judge as less than they are, based on their social strata. Society's providers are the business people. And then you have the servers, the workers. Now, we're going to look at both of them. So the business people, their role is to monitor and produce the economic goods and the commerce necessary, such as growing food, in this case, rearing cows for milk. The honest manufacture and exchange of merchandise and trading. Now here comes the critical part, and this is a foundation I'm talking about. Servers, workers, those in those serving positions form the foundation. They form the strength and the sinew, the backbone of society for working with, for, and in the service of all segments of society. Those are the servers, literally, who work behind the counter at the Tim Hortons. That's the 69-year-old door greeter who struggles to stay on her feet for 8 hours a day because she still needs to be earning a wage at her age to survive, who's working at Walmart. Those are the literal servers in restaurants who down in the States are making $2 and change per hour in a lot of the states and are trying to rely on their tips. These are people in every strata of our society who are earning minimum wage. In North America, a full 10% of the total number of people are considered the working poor. They work a minimum of 40 hours a week and cannot live. This is the foundation I'm talking about. And this foundation is beginning to fall apart. And it is not going to be put back together. The reason being that there's already a transition happening very rapidly from the upper levels of society, where those foundational jobs are simply being replaced by automation. We've already had stores opening here in Canada now in recent months that are totally unmanned. There isn't a human man or woman, and I don't say unwomaned, just to be clear, because that sounds really strange, but unmanned sounds better, you know. And I'm a guy, and unmanned doesn't not no, I wouldn't want that either. The bottom line is there's no one in the store. Even the goods are replenished via robotic arm. There's a human being so far that delivers goods to the warehouse or to the back end of the store. And maybe one person so far who has to put them on the right pallets for the robotic arm. But those jobs are disappearing faster and faster and faster. Now, at the same time, there's this huge media push that people don't want jobs, that there's so many jobs available and not enough people to fill them. But if you look at the jobs, you're literally working for table scraps in today's modern world. You are not being paid a wage or any sort of salary that's going to give you a stable and secure life. And let's do some simple numbers. A one-bedroom apartment is running around $1,400 right now. If you're lucky enough to be earning even $20 an hour, you're going to take home $3,200 before taxes. After taxes, you're probably going to take home about 27. And of that, a full nearly 60%, double what any bank will even touch as far as a mortgage goes, a full 60% of your income. And these, when you get down to the $15 an hour, you're talking 70% of the income is tied up in having a place to live. When you do the math, that person has very little money left over each month to even eat properly. Never mind start trying to do all the things that society says you must do. These jobs are going to disappear faster and faster and faster in this coming 5 years. There's going to be more and more who are going to struggle at the same time that the numbers are literally staggering. So here's the deal. The cost of living in the last 11 years from 2010 to 2021 has gone up a total of $15,000 a year. That's what it costs right now. $15,000 more than it did in 2010 to live for the year. 15,000. That is over $1,000 a month. Now, in the last 11 years, when we look at the foundation of society and their wages, what do you think that relates in terms of that rise, that $15,000 cost of living increase for the whole year? In so many cases, their salary hasn't actually moved at all. And less people have money available to tip, and to tip well. There's a lot of these people who just give up on the concept of going to work in order so they can barely survive. And the idea that we judge people based on where they are in our society is probably the most ignorant thing we can do to another person. That mother, I watched a video, and this was over in the UK because it's happening worldwide, okay? In the UK, I watched a video of a mother who works full-time in the post office, has a good job, and she and her daughter can barely survive. The cost of living is increasing so fast. The cost of food, the cost of fuel, the cost of those things which we need, the basic resources to heat our homes and our apartments and to keep them cool in the summer, all those things are skyrocketing. The choice is ours. As this foundation begins to fall apart, the suffering begins to increase and multiply. We are all being given, this is literally coming to a critical moment in human history, and few people are willing to see it that way. And you know what? That's okay. It really is. I don't care. But I tell you, I will not sit by quietly. I will not rage against anybody or anything, but I will speak for what we can be and what we can do. So we need to resist the dehumanization of the foundation of our society, and instead find ways to lift those people up. Every single one of them. Those who would struggle on their feet for 8 hours a day serving coffee to a bunch of people, as we've seen in countless situations, who can be ignorant and rude and incredibly disrespectful simply because they perceive that person behind the counter as somehow less than them. But where would they be if there was no one willing to serve them that coffee? Where would we be if there was nobody willing to wait on a table? And this is the situation that those in power and control are trying to address now, and are literally trying to take away the power that the 99% still has. And that power has always been in its roles within society. But as we automate those roles more and more, as we reduce the number of people who are necessary, as we automate this, it's happening with Amazon. Amazon, there's a big push to get Amazon unionized, and it's being driven by a number of people at the same time that Amazon is pushing in every way possible to phase out human beings wherever possible. And this is global. Now, you may have a position that offers you what you think is some sense of safety. Whether it's being a teacher or a care aide or any other number of things. But you are surrounded by your brother and sister family. The whole of humanity. To see the suffering that is needlessly going on in the name of this economy, in the name of the system that we've developed, breaks my heart. We can be so much more than this. So as we watch Walmart switch to cashierless registers and other stores doing the same thing, we must always ask ourselves, are we increasing the suffering on that very foundation of our society? The underlying masses of people who do so much to make sure that we can enjoy the lives that we live today. We also are in a position where, there's very little chance that our lives will improve when it comes to, dollars and cents, unless there's some sort of intervention in some sort of way. And that's never a concern to me. And quite frankly, I'm at an age now where I simply don't give a damn anymore. But I am very concerned for all the young people in the world right now. There are going to be less and less positions that are going to be offered that are going to pay a wage that will allow you to flourish within the societal system that we have today. And we have to start working on changing it right now. That's it. That's all. Some thoughts for tonight, some things to think about. We really have to begin to look at each other as parts of a whole to understand that the roles within society are supposed to be sacred trusts. They're duties. And with freedom comes duty. You can't have freedom and not have duty. And duty is such a strange word. The only way I can describe duty is when, even though your mind says, I don't want to do it, you just can't not do it. There's something inside you, some voiceless part of yourself that is compelling it to be done, even though you don't want to. And the reason that you don't want to, and the reason why you're going to do it, is because if you don't do it, you wouldn't be able to live with yourself. And that's what we call duty. I've learned to stop resisting that. If we're waking up, if you're realizing you're more than just that voice within your head, you too now have a duty to start shining that light of who you are, to start living out of the best compassionate place you can, to begin to recognize yourself in everyone around you. That's how we'll get through this. Namaste, much love. Have a beautiful Sunday night. We're in for a really nice big windstorm, so I'm looking forward to it. Take care. We'll talk again.